message, sounds like to me we have to come to an agreement.
I would like to leave this chat.
Hey y'all, it's Renegade, and it's time to spill more Reali-Tea in another Reali-Tea retrospective. As always, this series will take a deep dive at some of the most popular shows that have finished here in 2024. We'll start with my spoiler-free review to give anyone who hasn't seen the show a taste of just what you're in for. Then we'll get into an episode-by-episode review of the most needed to be talked about moments. So let's get some discussion going in the comments below, y'all. In today's recap, we take a deep dive into the latest edition of Netflix's infamous social media competition as they take catfishing to an entirely new level. Let me welcome you all to The Circle Season 6. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with The Circle, let me catch you up. Debuting in 2018 in the UK, Netflix brought the US Circle to us in the year 2020, with the first season airing just months before lockdown. First 5 seasons of The Circle were actually filmed abroad in the UK, with the season's 5th season completing filming in 2021 with a 2022 release. The show was completely an original idea for the Netflix audience, which sees our contestants live alone in their apartment buildings as they communicate solely through the social media app, The Circle. The fun part about The Circle is players can portray themselves however they see fit, with some choosing to play as themselves, as altered versions of themselves, or under a completely new persona known as a catfish. The main goal is to keep themselves as liked as possible, because throughout the series, the contestants rate each other from first to last, typically with those rated the highest at each interval given the status of influencers, while those who rate low are at risk for being blocked from the app for good. So that brings us to Season 6 of The Circle, which is the first to film in over 2 years, and the first to feature the new apartment complex building domestically in Atlanta, Georgia. Along with this season comes a crazy new twist that attempts to see if an AI robot can blend seamlessly in with the competing contestants, which makes this a social experiment like no other. But after 5 domestic seasons and several international editions as well, how does Netflix's attempt at a 6th and new era of The Circle work out? Well, let's discuss more in my spoiler-free review. So when it comes to the format of The Circle, I kind of already touched it in my initial description of the series, but the main format behind The Circle remains highly unchanged for its 6th edition, as the ratings, blockings, and catfish are more plentiful than ever. While most seasons typically start with a group of 7 to 8 players, with several new players showing up over the course of the season to take the place of those who have already been blocked, it feels as if this season they opt to take less players enter the game for a new format that seems to make the theme of each block of episode releases. For example, the first 4 episodes this season really focus on the AI bot twist, where our first 9 contestants are given time to try to attempt to spot the bot and get them eliminated from the game. Spoiler alert, the bot twist unfortunately does not last all season. Instead, with the format returning to the typical influencer blocking format with a partners mode twist. The final third of the game is a much more return to form as the final few players attempt to navigate the last blockings while keeping the best ratings, and honestly I do kind of like the way this format works out over other seasons. I do get the main selling point of the show are the intruders that are waiting in the wings, but for me it always feels like the late arrivals have had the worst position of playing catch up to the point where it doesn't even feel like they have much of a chance, but allowing them all to mostly enter in the beginning really gives the players time to get to know each other as well as the audience time to get to know the players as well. So I personally really liked it. Other than the fact that the AI bot twist did not last longer, the format of this particular season works out much better than the others that I've seen in the past, so I'll give them a solid B+. But probably could have been an A if the AI would have lasted even just one more round longer. As always, a reality TV show will live or die upon its cast, and can I just say I don't think I usually like the cast of Netflix shows very much. They definitely have their personality types that they tend to have to check off, and this season it really seemed like it was kind of more of the same when the cast was initially introduced to us, but boy does this cast really benefit from the format and the extended time because they really ultimately deliver on all fronts as far as the game goes on. There definitely is a little depth issue lacking in some of the players, as not everyone shines as bright as others, but I do think a vast majority of these 11 players, including Brandon, Caress, Jordan, Kyle, Lauren, Miles, and QT, all really bring it to the point where I found myself a lot more invested in these people and the outcomes that I don't feel like I usually get like that on this show. The strategy, especially for a circle season, was surprisingly really good, and I was seeing people making moves this season that I don't think I've seen on past seasons. Now, to be fair, I did stop watching after season 3, so I have not yet touched season 4 or season 5. But for me, this felt like a great strategic reawakening that this game needed, and we can only thank this cast for giving it to us. So I'll give them a very solid B for being one of the better ones that I've seen on one of these Netflix shows. Now, by far my biggest issue with the storytelling and editing is just sometimes it feels like this show purposefully misleads you into thinking certain things about the ratings, or even most of just certain things about the game that they kind of just leave out. They make it a little weird at certain points about how things in certain ratings kind of ultimately shake out. For example, there's a portion in the middle of the show where like half the cast is aligned, and we're made to think that one person in particular is in trouble, but then someone else instead is put into that person's position, and it's never really well explained for me exactly what happened that made the ratings flip flop at the last second. There's just the things that obviously, I mean, can be inferred and conclusions we can jump to about these events, but I would rather just the show tell us everything and not have me do like math behind the scenes to create a narrative as to why things happened the way that they did. It really only happened that one time, though, I'll be honest. So the show does a generally good job most of the time explaining things. But when the show is showing us the players just reacting to things and they ultimately have nothing but time to show it to us, I'd rather them give us a cohesive narrative versus trying to make us shocked and confused over a cliffhanger that they're going to make us wait over a week to resolve. So I'm going to give them a B minus when it comes to the editing. It's not the worst I've seen, but it's definitely not the best at all. So overall, I gotta say I definitely enjoyed season 6 of The Circle, and it really felt as if this season could be leading us to a much more strategic show in the future. While some of their gags could have lasted a little longer, I do like the fact that The Circle switched things up from its typical format in an attempt to give us a much more invested product. Whereas other seasons felt like a bunch of people making friends, this season felt like the stakes have really been raised to much more of an actual game of strategy. The AI bot twist was really fun to start the season off, and they had some additional twists that really keep the excitement going. They also feel like they're natural progressions of the game versus them just pulling twists out of left field just to make people crazy. So it does feel like a lot of thought and time and care went into this season, more so than I've seen from some of the other editions of the show. I'm going to give The Circle Season 6 a solid B for its evolution of game strategy and overall excitement, as it feels like this is a really solid rebooting of the series, especially since Season 7 has already been filmed. So, now that you know what the show is and what my thoughts are on it, let's get to the real tea, y'all. If you haven't seen the show, I definitely suggest stopping here or use the chapter guide to go to specific episodes. So here we are at the season premiere for the first time in over a year. The Circle is back and in a new city, the ATL, but the game is still the same. Let us introduce our first 7 players to join the Circle. We got Kyle, a 31-year-old international pro basketball player from Miami, Florida, who was recently married but is choosing to hide that fact, entering the Circle as a single basketball trainer. We have Lauren, a 26-year-old gamer, cosplayer, and ex-Twitch streamer from Philly, choosing to play as herself. We have Miles, or Young Poppy Fuego as he's dubbed himself, a 29-year-old AI engineer from South Central LA, and is chosen to play as his fuckboy self. We have Brandon, a 34-year-old nursing assistant from Columbus, Ohio, who has chosen to enter the Circle as his hot friend Olivia. With Cassie, a 29-year-old mother from Manchester, Kentucky, who caught her ex-husband cheating by catfishing on social media, and she's entering as herself. We have Steffi, a 35-year-old psychic medium and astrologer from Redondo Beach, California, entering as herself, but minus the psychic part. And we have Caress, a 37-year-old motivational speaker from Dallas, Texas, who's choosing to enter the Circle as a single version of her younger brother, rapper Paul Russell. Now, the group meets for their very first group chat as Kyle, Lauren, Miles, and Brandon, aka Olivia, enter first, with Brandon feeling like he's left overshadowed, even almost breaking into tears after he's unable to make Olivia's presence known when Cassie, Steffi, and Caress, aka Paul, enter as well. Now, we get our first game called For Real, and the players are given a series of morally challenging questions and have to pick a response, which will be revealed among the group to judge. Question 1 is, would you unfriend someone who is cancelled? And Miles is the only one who says yes. Question 2 is, would you date someone who has an OnlyFans? And all the women, plus Miles, say yes, leaving Kyle and Paul as the odd ones out. Question 3 is, if your friend confessed to you they were cheating, would you keep their secret? Miles is the only one who says no, standing out from the group yet again and making it very clear that he's the outlier of the group at this point. And then we have the fourth question, which is, would you break someone up over text? Which Caress tries to be strategic to make Paul look like a bad boy and say yes, which is hilarious because she ends up getting stuck with Miles as the only two that say that. Lauren and Kyle eventually have a conversation on their own where they feel like they agree on the majority of their answers, and Kyle reaches out to relate to her on video games and anime. While they're mid-conversation, Paul also messages Lauren, but their conversation is a lot more awkward, as Lauren does not get a 26-year-old straight man from Paul, but Caress also thinks Lauren is a man too, so that was a pretty funny interaction there. Olivia and Steffi connect, while Miles tries to do some damage control by making a connection with fellow blonde Cassie. Later that evening, the players get their very first rankings alert, where we learn per usual that the top two will be influencers with an important decision to make. The cast stresses to make their decisions after knowing each other for less than 24 hours, but they get to celebrate afterwards when the circle throws them a welcome party, which is promptly ended when they reveal the ranking results. And when the results come in, we have Paul finishing in 7th, Cassie and Miles tying for 5th, Kyle finishing 4th, Psychic Stephanie finishing just outside the top two, with Lauren and Olivia becoming our top two influencers, with Olivia being number 1. We learned though that our influencers will not be blocking anyone, but instead will be responsible for selecting one new player to join the circle. Brandon decides to bring in Corey Tyler, a 26-year-old superfan and former NBA dancer from Los Angeles, while Lauren picks Max, a 26-year-old veterinarian intern. Just kidding, he's an AI robot. And the episode ends in the same fashion as one of those Terminator movies where the computers are taking over. Well, at least taking over the circle, at least. We begin episode 2 as QT and Max are officially introduced to the game. Now, there seems to be some controversy here to exactly what type of AI that Max actually is, because they claim he is an open source AI that has been quoted from all the previous seasons of the Circle to become the most popular player in the game. It says it chooses to be 26 to leverage both life experience and youth, picking to be a veterinary assistant, and choosing a photo with a dog because statistically they are more well liked. They even give Max a cute little computer voiced in post-production, so please tell me why I'm already rooting for Max to destroy here. They're saying that the producers are hands-off, but I kind of get the feeling there might be like a human or two watching over this pink and purple flashing box just to make sure it doesn't do anything too crazy. So for me, I kind of get the perception of that they want to make it as realistic as possible given the environment, but the circle already kind of holds in itself in a fantasy land as it is, where we don't know really the rules of like how many messages they get to send to each other each day, how many times can they contact each other, all the other specifics that we don't really know here. So we'll just hold up in the fantasy land here and just pretend like Max is the one sending the messages here. Now, QT and Max also find a lot of success initially when Olivia and Lauren reach out to them individually to make sure the newbies knew the influencers want to work with them. Olivia tries to get an all-girls thing going with Cassie. QT agrees, but she's hesitant being there's just ladies there, and since the other women have bonded since the start too, she would be the latecomer in the group. Meanwhile, the men do their own bro code alliance as well when Kyle's, Miles, and Paul join forces. Max seems a little more hesitant since his coding suggests a diverse alliance is better, and he does not want to betray his initial alliance that he made with Lauren. Steffi later on starts a group chat with everyone to get to know them doing yoga, which instantly annoys Miles, and he just sits around while everyone else does yoga with Steffi. She offers QT and Max a horoscope reading, to which Steffi predicts QT's love life is about to get spicy, but it seems 50-50 that Steffi's chat worked, or turned them off. We get to our second game, Wrap It Up, where players choose another player to write a rap about them. Lauren and Max write their raps about each other, which throws Kyle off because he thought he was well connected with Lauren. Stephanie writes her rap about Paul, but it's actually not a great thing because she basically calls him out for being a catfish. Trying not to be negative, Caress raps about Kyle, and it's a pretty good rhyme that does kind of prove to a few people that Paul can actually rap. QT and Miles rap about each other, but Cassie gets jealous when her fellow blonde doesn't rap about her. But the final alert of the episode reveals, gasp, not all players are human, as everyone speculates on who the AI bot is, and Kyle makes this hilarious face like he's about to poop his pants as he figures out that the whole world is being taken over by robots. Episode 3 begins with everyone on alert for the AI, while Max's new goal is to be as inconspicuous as possible. Paul is pretty convinced Steffi's astrology is actually just AI generated, while Lauren is convinced that Paul is actually the AI because she thinks his rap was AI generated. Max does a good job of getting Lauren to doubt her connection with Steffi, though, as Max wants as many people sus of each other as possible than on him. Kyle especially seems stressed out and confused by the news. He's pretty convinced his ally Paul could be the bot, and I'm kind of loving how every time Paul messages Kyle, Kyle gets all sorts of sus and annoyed and freaked out. We then get a point here where Miles shoots his shot with QT as the two make a solid connection and solidify their flirtmance with an alliance. We finally get our third game, which the setup for this episode is officially set up on their whole AI witch hunt here, so they have the whole day to play this game to prove their humanity to each other. And they will have to rank each other at the end of this process to determine who is the most and least human player. We learn that the player who holds all the power will be the player that they decide is the most human, and this player will have to block the player they believe is the least human. So in this test, Circle will ask 3 questions that they think that only humans can answer, including a humor test where they tell a joke, an empathy test where they describe emotions from a photo, and a critical thinking test which asks them to deal with how they would resolve with a little kid kicking their seat on a plane. Now, Steffi's Britney Spears knock knock joke and her use of the term subconscious wounding definitely throws people off here, while Cassie is convinced Max is not the AI because he's able to know about what apps are. That's just some of the extent of the gold mines of just the genius that Cassie is this season. We also get Caress using the critical thinking test to actually throw shots at Steffi, while Miles takes one of Caress's jokes about him flirting with QT, but probably having a girl back home pretty personally, and fires shots back at Paul, meaning, is there an issue with the bro code? Steffi does some sort of egg cleanse at the end of the night to try to give her better juju. And I'm actually kind of curious now because she makes some noise at the end of it, like, oh my god, this is gonna happen, but we never learn if this was like a good thing that happened with the egg crack or a bad thing. Could someone please find out? Steffi, if you're there, please tell me in the comments. Was it good juju? I need to know. Um, anyway, though, it seems like going into this day, though, the two main suspects everybody have are Paul and Steffi. It seems like Lauren and Olivia are the most on Team Steffi, while Kyle and QT are mostly on Team Paul. But Lauren starts to question everything when Paul, QT, and Cassie all express their doubts on Steffi. Miles has a conversation with Steffi where Miles wants Steffi to give her anything to help her case, but her reasoning as to why Paul is the bot doesn't sit well with him, so Miles just basically leaves the chat. But we're about to get the results of the previous rating when the circle rudely leaves us on yet another cliffhanger. We get the results at the top of episode 4 for who our most human player is, and that player voted is Miles. Immediately, QT and Kyle are excited, with Lauren happy it's not her, while Brandon, Caress, and Steffi instantly feel worried since Miles will now have the sole decision to block the bot. QT messages her human boo thing alliance partner before bed, and they kind of check in with some initial thoughts, as QT thinks it's Steffi, but Miles still cannot get over Paul's lie about Miles having a girlfriend, and even Caress knows that her joke might have gotten her in trouble. Now they have an activity for the day, which is to post a picture on the day you felt the most alive. And most people do well, but 4 people stand out specifically for questionable photos. Kyle gets called out by QT when he posts a picture that is super far away, while Max curates a photo that has him with sunglasses and a stone face, which is like, oop, did our AI just fuck up for the first time? Steffi and Paul go after each other as well when they both call each other out for having photos that seem like stock photos. Stephanie starts to spiral a bit and goes to Olivia, aka Brandon, for support. Olivia decides to try to go to Miles and convince him of Steffi's humanity, and while they're talking, Lauren also joins in with the same objective, doing a good job of throwing doubt in Miles' mind. Now they do have one final game to end the episode, You Robot, which lets each player make a pitch to Miles as to which player they believe are the least human. Lauren has to go first, naming Paul as the AI, while Caress, aka Paul, calls out Steffi. Max also joins the Steffi train and names her as the bot just to get more sus on her. Max's data is spot on because Cassie, Kyle, and QT also name Steffi as the bot. Stephanie and Olivia call out Kyle's photos as sus, which gets Kyle annoyed at QT for getting the sus on him to begin with. Kyle messages QT to clear the air afterwards, and the two bond, while Max does the same with Miles to make sure the sus is completely off the bot. Now, it's kind of scary how good Max is at this, like, so good in such a way that Miles chooses to work with Max to suss out Paul, but instead Max chooses to not help and leaves the chat, while Paul doesn't give Miles the answer he wants at all, leaving Miles extremely confused as he goes to make his big decision. Miles' shortlist comes down to Steffi, Paul, Max, and Kyle, and we are told he has to block someone face to face. But, of course, we don't find out this episode because the show is rude and makes us wait a week to get the next block of episodes. So when we finally open episode 5, we get another montage of Miles walking slowly down the hallway as everyone panics to hide themselves, but it is finally revealed. After five episodes, first person eliminated from the Circle Season 6 is Psychic Steffi. Now, when it comes to Steffi, I will be very honest, I typically don't really get into her archetype on the shows too often. See, maybe Kendra from season 45 was maybe the outlier in this, because I really like Kendra, she was crazy. But typically don't really get into the astrologer type person. I've never really been into astrology myself, so the crystals, etc. is just it's not something I personally relate to. But I will say I just feel bad that Steffi got called out here. While it did seem like the perception of her character ultimately got narrowed down to just what her beliefs were, we really got to see a lot of sides of Steffi and even a little strategy and cattiness with her tiff with Paul. A lot of it feels like Miles just needed to take out a woman to make sure the numbers were equal along gender lines, so it was definitely the most expected result, but still, I gotta say I feel for Steffi here. We learn that the blocking is not revealed that night, though, as everyone goes to bed wondering who Miles has chosen to eliminate. But they learn the next morning when Steffi's goodbye message is played on their newsfeed. And Steffi kind of throws Miles under the bus a little bit as his job as an AI engineer, and he was not able to tell who the bot really actually was. Now, Steffi goes on to reveal that she is a psychic, and she had a vision that one of them is going to win. But before she can reveal that big revelation, we are interrupted by an even bigger revelation as the AI bot takes over the video feed, revealing that he is actually Max and has completed his goal of going undetected during the first elimination. I gotta say, I am bummed this twist ends so early because I was really looking forward to see if the AI could have won. Now, I'm sure that this type of experiment, though, probably would have been needed to be handled by some sort of scientific arena versus like Netflix example here, but I still wanted it to happen. Also, kind of feels a little cheap because I feel like the twist was marketed to be a lot longer, and while I do appreciate we got a lot of time to get to know everyone before the first elimination, why did they have to take Max out too? Lauren is basically me here when she groans in disgust and annoyance at losing her two allies in one go. But with the AI bot gone, it's time to see how good this cast truly can be at playing the circle. Now, Miles owns his decisions to the group chat, admitting he was working with self driving cars, not chatbots, so he should have a little bit of an excuse here catching the AI bot. But Cassie calls Miles out anyways, which actually gains Miles more sympathy and kind of gets the group against Cassie. Kyle uses the moment to call Olivia out for the AI comments, while Lauren tries to deepen her connection with Olivia now that they are both alone. We get to our next game, Portraits, where players anonymously draw a portrait of another player. It highlights a portrait that they have. Highlights here include Kyle's painting of Olivia that says she doesn't care about the other players, QT's painting of Kyle calling him fake that links it back to Olivia instead of her, and Cassie and Miles painting each other. Cassie is pissed that someone called her a snake, and there's a funny conversation between the two where she tries to figure out exactly who's did what, and Miles admits here that he painted it, and Cassie tries to stay mad at Miles, but his apologies do get her to forgive him eventually. QT and Miles strategize and decide to open their alliance up to Kyle, and the episode ends as QT confirms Kyle is locked in and Tres Fuego is officially born. We begin episode 6 as a new day dawns following the portrait game, and we get two new players entering the circle. We have Autumn, 21-year-old ranch hand from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, playing as her self-described redneck self, and Jordan, a 24-year-old photographer from Austin, Texas, choosing not to play as his current, more fit self, but instead his heavier 22-year-old self, and Big J seem to be determined to be our circle villain. Now, for our sixth game, we learned this episode everyone will be rating each other, including Autumn and Jordan, but the new players cannot be ranked. So, in order to give Autumn and Jordan an advantage, everyone chooses one of the two new players to write a message to in hopes that they are the one person Autumn or Jordan chooses to continue the conversation with. Autumn gets messages from Cassie, Paul, and QT. Paul's promise to spill all the tea is too much for Autumn to avoid, so she continues her conversation with Paul, aka Caress. Paul kind of gives everyone out and calls everyone out, saying Lauren is a backstabber, looks like a catfish, Miles and QT are in a romance, Cassie is a snake in the grass, and Olivia is just lagging behind, which actually ends up turning Autumn off as to how much information gets passed along here. Meanwhile, Jordan gets messages from pretty much everyone else, but chooses to pass up time with Kyle, Lauren, and Olivia in order to continue the conversation with Miles, based on the fact that Miles reveals he was an influencer before. Miles reveals he's flirting with QT, Lauren lost both allies and was called two-faced, and Paul is playing very messy. Jordan does his best to suck up to Miles, but Jordan quickly picks up that Miles is very influential and very well liked, and could be his biggest threat. Autumn and Jordan join the circle chat for the first time, to which Autumn tries to get things a little messy by asking someone to spill tea. Cassie takes the bait and starts some drama about the portraits, to which Miles owns up to it like he said he would. Brandon feels bad about his relationship with Kyle, so he messages as Olivia to discuss where things went wrong here, and they actually have one of the deepest conversations so far this season as they relate over losing their fathers at a young age, and it seems like Kyle and Olivia find a very unexpected connection here. So we get to our next ratings, and everyone ranks the cast, but for some reason, Cassie has decided she is going to flip flop her rankings and rank the people that she would normally rank low in high positions and vice versa, which, dear Lord, Cassie, this has got to be the dumbest strategy I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, why are you giving people you don't like or don't really like you the power? Like, this legit kind of makes me angry because it is that dumb. So the ranking results come in, and no surprise, Cassie is literally dead last. Followed by Cassie, we get Olivia because Cassie tanked Olivia's rating, so she ends up in 6th place. We get Paul, moving up to 5th place, Miles finishing out in 4th, Lauren in 3rd, with Kyle and QT becoming 1st and 2nd place, and our next influencers of the circle. Meaning Cassie's decision to rank Kyle first literally gave him the top spot next to QT, who immediately have to go up to the hangout to make their decision to block. Now, QT initially starts out with Olivia, but after Kyle's conversation with her, she might be off the table. They'll come back to her. QT is okay with blocking Paul, but Kyle seems to stick for him as well too. Cassie's name also comes out for being the last rank, to which QT realizes that she might have to break the alliance she made with Cassie and send her home in order to get the support of the entire group. Lauren's name isn't entirely off the table either, because neither Kyle or QT really know where her head is at. So, going into this blocking, it seems like Cassie, Lauren, and Olivia are the most vulnerable, but we leave the episode on yet another cliffhanger, so who knows what will happen. Well, episode 7 finally starts, and we learn that it was Cassie that was eliminated here. She seemed like a sweetheart, but when it came to strategy, oof, possibly one of the worst I've ever seen on any show, ever. I'm just gonna leave it right there. Cassie decides to go visit Olivia and is shocked when Brandon greets her at the door. But the two still bond as friends as Cassie reveals to Olivia that Miles and QT had an alliance with her and turned their back on her. And as a QT fan, boo, Cassie, you need to stop bringing attention to my girl right now. Let's just stop it. The next morning, Cassie's goodbye message is up on the news feed, to which she says her biggest mistake in the game was aligning with who she aligned with, leaving everyone to wonder who she aligned with and who she just took shots at. Shortly after the group chat is opened, QT kind of confirms it was her that betrayed Cassie, while Miles also tries to cover for QT a bit by taking a portion of the blame. But Brandon continues to call out those people subtly, which puts a target on Olivia's back for speaking up as well. Now, Lauren reaches out to Olivia to get some clarification, and the two decide to align even deeper. As Kyle is the only person he doesn't know well or where his head's at, Jordan decides to message Kyle, pretending to be a lost puppy dog. Kyle is still salty from him not picking his message on Jordan's first day, and Kyle doesn't really give Jordan the information he wants, choosing to protect QT and the Tres Fuego instead. Or should I say hashtag Fuego4, because Paul and Miles have a great time connecting and a great conversation that leads to Paul getting on board with the Alliance as well. We get to the 7th game, it's personal, and the players are given a list of random questions to test to gauge how much they have in common with the rest of the players, but the answers are only revealed in percentage answered. The players vote on questions like if they'd rather fight one bear or fight 500 chickens, have a cozy night in or a wild night out, if their phone photos leaked or their Google searches leaked, no sex for a year or no social media for a year, or find your parents' sex tapes or have them find your sex tape, which is like, what is that last question? You? How do you even rationalize one answer or the other? Ugh. Anyway, it's not long before we learn here that the true reason for the game, it is a compatibility test meant to pair you up with the person you have most in common with, or in other terms, your ride or die. We learn they must keep their partnership a secret from everyone else, which is like, Circle, what could be up your sleeves here? Now, our ride or die pairs turn out to be Jordan and QT, Kyle and Paul, Autumn and Lauren, and shockingly, Miles and Olivia, which is like evil circle. Evil. We get some strategizing sessions with the pairs as Paul decides to throw them both out there and they should both have the same strategy in targeting Lauren, while Autumn warns Lauren about her first conversation with Paul where he called Lauren a backstabber. QT also throws out Lauren as an untrusty person to Jordan as Jordan decides he will work with QT until it doesn't serve his purpose anymore. Meanwhile, Miles and Olivia suck it up and realize they don't have a choice but to work together, deciding to rank each other at the top and tank the same player, choosing New Girl Autumn to target. The episode ends with pairs party as each group is given a couple's costume like peas and carrots, eggs and bacon, milk and cookies, or mustard and ketchup. Only for yet another cliffhanger ending as we learn that the ride or die truly means ride or die, as the circle reveals their fates are tied to their partner, and if they are blocked, then their ride or die is blocked with them. Gasp! We spend the entirety of episode 8 as the ride or die pairs try to work out a way from being double eliminated. Kyle is immediately nervous because Paul has always been ranked low, while Autumn is worried here because she's new and she may drag Lauren down under with her. Jordan has a conversation with Olivia, trying to win her over to his side, and lies to her that Miles flirted with him, which is like, I mean, I love the strategy here, Jordan, but because they're ride or dies here, Olivia doesn't want to badmouth Miles, which confuses Jordan a lot more that none of his manipulation tactics seem to be working here. But as we know, Miles is actually flirting with QT as he gets her breakfast in bed, and I'm like, ew, am I actually finding these two cute together? Because, aw, that was cute. Now, Autumn reaches out to Kyle in an attempt to make an alliance, and they seem to bond over working out. We get to our 8th game, Circle Scenarios, where each player is given a question about who is most and least likely to end up in that situation. Kyle ends up coming at Jordan for his response, making Jordan realize Kyle may be against him, so Jordan names Kyle as the biggest threat to win. Lauren tries to hide her ride or die relationship with Autumn by giving her the most likely to buy likes, which leads to a pileup on Autumn that Lauren instantly regrets, especially since Miles and Olivia are targeting Autumn, but this throws off Kyle because he just aligned with her earlier that day. I definitely do feel for Autumn here that she got ganged up on, and Brandon is also feeling pretty guilty too that he put her in that position. So Brandon reaches out as Olivia to try to apologize, but still doesn't really give Autumn much certainty that she will actually work with her. Caress reaches out as Paul to Lauren in an attempt to gain her trust, knowing Caress is going to target Lauren anyway. But we have to remember, if Paul and Kyle are targeting Lauren, and Miles and Olivia are targeting Autumn, this means that the Fuego 4 are splitting their ranks, and the tension is raised when we get the alert for their ride or die rankings. However, in a twist, there will be no influencers this week, and instead the player who is ranked dead last is blocked and takes the ride or die with them, which is like, whoa, nuts. Well, they don't make us wait till the next episode for once to get to the ratings, as we are told that the lowest ranking player and their ride or die will be notified now. And one by one, each player is revealed safe, except for Kyle and Paul, whose plan to split the votes away from the same target as the other Fuego 4, clearly left Paul vulnerable to the lower rankings from the girls, and Paul is also probably ranked the lowest out of all the Fuego 4 members individually anyway, so kind of a shock to see Autumn and Lauren not in this position, but also I think we get it after reading into things a little bit more here. But let's not forget our cliffhanger ending that we have to get here, because we learn here at the end of this episode that only one of the two may have to leave here, as they have the opportunity to save their ride or die by sacrificing their own game to let let their ride or die stay in the game. Now, the mechanics of this twist are kind of dumb, because there should be a way if they both pick the option that they could both stay, but it's literally if you both pick to stay or both pick to sacrifice, you're out. So the only way for someone to stay is if they pick stay and the other sacrifices. So, will anyone take the fall? Well, we'll have to wait another week for another 4 episodes to drop. So, thanks a lot, Netflix. Well, finally, here it is, episode 9. And when we finally return from our cliffhanger, it turns out Cress is taking the higher road, choosing to sacrifice herself, blocking Paul from the game, but allowing Kyle to stay in. Cress gets the chance to say goodbye to her ride or die, and they have a nice moment together where Kyle seems very grateful that Cress made the choice she did. Overall, I came to really enjoy Caress as a truly fun personality this season. While I think her game was kind of tanked from the start, with her choosing to act like a version of her brother that they think people would like, versus just choosing to act like a normal person, because she made a lot of mistakes and took a lot of risks that she didn't really have to make. People sensed that something was off about the portrayal of Paul, and it just made Caress have to play from the bottom from the jump. In some games, you can play from the bottom because it's easier, but in the circle, where it's basically a popularity contest, playing from the bottom means you have limited respect, limited allies, and very limited resources for change. Caress seemed very well liked in her video to everybody too, so it seems like if she just would have came in as herself, she might have found some more success. But I'm glad that she realized that ultimately that her rankings were low enough to the point where her continuing on probably didn't make much more sense here, and I'm glad here that she didn't take the opportunity away from Kyle as well. The next morning, Caress's video is on the newsfeed, and everyone is shocked to learn they eliminated their first catfish from the game. But Caress can drop a beat just like her brother, so at least the rhyming skills were real. In the circle chat, it seems like Jordan is digging for info, but just like his other attempts at strategy, it kind of just ends up turning the group off, making people realize Jordan just wants info but hasn't really got to know anybody to earn their trust first. Meanwhile, Lauren is starting to rub hashtag TwistFuegos the wrong way with her overly friendly messages, while Autumn just wants to know why everyone dogpiled on her, including Lauren, her own ride or die. Autumn eventually confronts Lauren one-on-one, to which Lauren apologizes and agrees that she will help with damage control for Autumn, even though Lauren thinks privately she doesn't want to prioritize anyone else's game over her own. Miles decides he wants to try to get in good with the newbie, so he checks in with Jordan, where Jordan continues to build up Miles, when really Jordan wants nothing more than to take Miles out and get QT and Kyle's to himself. Meanwhile, Olivia and QT clear the air, deciding to align officially, pinning the target on Autumn. They play their 9th game, Naughty and Nice, where they have to upload their naughtiest photo and their nicest photo. Based on their photos, they vote for the naughtiest and nicest player. Olivia is voted the nicest, while Lauren is voted the naughtiest since she shows her ass, basically. The game has left everyone feeling a little naughty, especially Kyle, who has decided now is the time to put the charm on Olivia and try to connect with her more, especially on a more naked level. I don't, yeah, which is hilarious here because Brandon is literally sitting in the hot tub while this conversation is going on. And the only reason I stand for these overly flirty messages with these people on the show that they like to send here is when you get these hilarious catfish moments like this. Now, we have a married man playing as a single man hitting on a girl that he doesn't know is actually a man. They share some more photos, and Kyle even drops that Olivia is his hashtag dream girl. Now, the night is growing to an end, and everyone is getting ready to go to sleep, but the circle has other plans as they get another rating alert. But to make this one even spicier, we learn only the top rated player will become the influencer, while the ride or die will become a secret influencer. And everyone freaks out as the episode ends. Now the players begin episode 10 at the end of their night doing their ratings, and clearly everyone has trouble sleeping, worried where they rank amongst their fellow players. The next morning, Lauren and QT have a funny conversation where they're pretending to still be friendly with each other, but they're both asking questions that the other is ignoring, which is like, they both know they're not completely honest with each other, but they're still okay with it. Meanwhile, Jordan bonds with Autumn as the two newest players, and Jordan tries to slander Miles by saying he's flirting with him, but like not flirting with him, but just talking very smoothly with him. Jordan, if you're gonna lie, just go all the way, because it's coming off so confusing anyway at this point. We get to their 10th game. Oh, we're going there. And in this game, players ask each other hard-hitting questions to another player. They do so anonymously. Miles gives Olivia an easy question in order to give her a chance for positivity, being that they are ride or dies. Lauren gives Jordan a question about who he thinks is the biggest threat, and although Jordan wants to say Miles, he says Lauren instead. Kyle gets a question about his strongest alliance, which he avoids answering. Jordan calls Miles out, saying that the circle is wrapped around his finger, to which QT immediately senses that it's Jordan, even though Miles is none the wiser. Kyle calls out the fact that all of Lauren's allies have left, and she tries to hide the truth by saying that everyone's still in the game she has a great relationship with, which is kind of a bad look for her. QT tries to get Autumn to name who she feels least comfortable with, but Autumn skirts around the issue, while QT does the same when Autumn tries to get her to call out which of her alliances she trusts least. The game leads #ChoiceFuego, making a group chat to confirm their strategy moving forward. Miles suggests Autumn and Lauren as the targets, while Kyle pushes Lauren to be the target over Autumn. Meanwhile, Lauren is determined to figure out what she did that made her into such a big threat to Jordan, to which Jordan reveals to Lauren that Miles was the one that told him that, trying to get more numbers against Miles. We learn their fate is no longer tied to their ride or dies, so we get the revelation of their next rankings. Autumn is ranked dead last, while Jordan, the next newcomer, comes in 6th. Kyle has a huge drop to 5th, while Lauren comes in 4th. Miles is just outside the top 2 at 3rd, meaning Olivia and QT are our top 2. However, because there's only one influencer this round, QT, who is ranked the highest amongst everybody, is named the influencer, meaning Jordan, as her ride or die, joins her as the secret influencer. QT didn't necessarily want the power, but she's determined to take out the person that she wants out, while Jordan is ready to manipulate the influencer into making a big move. The influencer chat is going, and Jordan immediately turns down QT's suggestions for Autumn and Lauren to be eliminated, instead throwing Miles under the bus, which immediately puts QT on the defensive and actually turns QT off. So much to the point where we end the episode, but the influencer is deadlocked over who will be the next blocked. Episode 11 opens and we come back to the hangout eager to see how this deliberation is going to finish up, as Jordan is convinced that he's going to get QT to turn on one of her allies tonight. However, things are resolved rather easily because QT points out she's the one with the check mark, not Jordan. So ultimately, when it comes down to it, she gets the final say in what happens. QT makes a baller move and just leaves the chat with Jordan, which just makes me cackle so hard. I love QT is playing her own game. It is not letting Jordan's try-hard technique change her mind whatsoever. When QT reveals her decision, she sticks to the plan of the #ChoiceFrigos and blocks Autumn from the circle. Autumn goes to see Jordan where they discuss strategy, and also kind of laugh for a moment when Jordan literally tells Autumn to her face that she was not a threat to win. Like, Jordan, what are you doing? This guy. Truth be told, Autumn was nice and all, but I feel like the intruders in this game always have it rough since there's just much less time to get to know people, so I always kind of felt like she was just a bit of a question mark for me. Autumn trying to get information kind of got a reputation as a shit stirrer a bit, and it's clear the OG Circle crew just kind of bonded closer than they did with her by the time she got there, so ultimately this elimination doesn't bother me, but it kind of just is what it is. After Autumn leaves here, Jordan goes to bed with a new game plan. Since he cannot get Miles directly, he's now planning on making his showman's QT look as bad as possible. Autumn calls out the power couples in her statement, while Lauren is upset again that she made yet another mistake. Jordan is sick of all the love and calls QT and Miles out in the group chat. While Lauren and Olivia initially defend QT, they also start to see that Miles and QT are a powerful couple as well. Lauren goes to Kyle to check in, and Kyle lies to Lauren to get info about who she was calling out in the circle chat. Lauren is honest and tells Kyle that she thinks Miles is the one controlling the game. Meanwhile, Miles goes to Olivia and they discuss Jordan's comments and their rocky game past, seemingly solidifying Olivia joining the Tres Fuegos as their fourth in their alliance. But We've seen that one before with Paul, so we'll see how that goes again here. Now, Jordan goes to Kyle to try to get him to flip on his alliance with Miles and QT as well, promising to rate Kyle high as his own partner if he takes the shot at the couple. Kyle realizes he's in the middle, and although he would have a guilty conscience, he also would have a better shot at winning the game if one of the two couple were out. So he agrees to it, and suddenly there's so much questioning here. Now the episode ends here as we get to our 11th game, Thank You Bestie, as each player gets to pick one player to give a gift to. Lauren, Miles, and Jordan do not get gifts. Kyle gives his gift to QT, while Kyle himself gets a gift from Olivia, as well as one from Jordan, who is trying to get on his good side after their conversation from earlier. Olivia gets the most gifts from QT, Miles, and Lauren. Everyone has to reveal via a thank you note in the circle chat who sent a gift to who, and after receiving 3 gifts, Olivia ends the night and the episode feeling like the biggest target in the game. So there's only 2 more episodes left, and with one last blocking on the horizon, everyone is coming up with their strategies for the penultimate day in episode 12. Miles messages Lauren to figure out what happened the day before in Circle Chat, and Miles pieces together that Jordan has been coming from him for quite some time, causing Miles to throw a little bit of a temper tantrum and throw the chairs all on the rooftop. Okay, Miles, you got a lot done there. Very intimidating. Meanwhile, Kyle and Olivia reconfirm their connection to each other, and while they both agree that they want to knock out QT and Miles a bit, they don't want either of them out of the game completely. Meanwhile, Jordan also tries to convince QT that he has bigger fish to fry in Olivia after she has 3 gifts, to which QT doesn't necessarily believe. Everyone gets a message from home, and then the final moves begin to get made. Hashtag Choicefuego gets together where they officially agree Jordan needs to go, while Jordan shoots his shot with Lauren and Olivia to try to get them to take out one of the Trish Fuego. After a hoedown, we get our final alert telling us the highest rated player is going to become a secret super influencer and will block the next player in secret. We learn that that player is Olivia, who seems ready to make a big move as we head into the final cliffhanger of the season, as well as we will figure out which 4 players will join Olivia in the season finale. Gotta say, depending on what Olivia does here, she really could be setting Brandon up for the win, or will Brandon ultimately make a choice here that doesn't work out in his favor? Get the feeling here that this could be a big all power move here, the move that could possibly ultimately decide the end of the season. And let's pray for Miss QT that it is not her that gets eliminated. And when we return to the circle for our season finale, all of Jordan's scheming has finally paid off as the super secret influencer Brandon, aka Olivia, has decided to block Miles. Now, I was not expecting this. I was literally so ready for QT to be blocked and my heart to be broken, but after Olivia and Miles have had so much drama all season, this kind of makes sense as well. I will be very honest, I did not like Miles at all the first moment he was introduced to us, but if anybody had the opportunity to really grow on me, it was him. I never jive well with the fuckboy type, but something about seeing a very genuine side of him with QT, I really think it brought out a lot of his more positive qualities, and perhaps I shouldn't judge a fuckboy by his clothes. Sometimes there are good people lying underneath. The fact that he went to go see QT shows he was being genuine as well. Also, I still don't know why QT rated Mouse. Their allies either, but anyways, I'll have to remember my advice for the next time I'm on Grindr. It is our last day in the circle, and it's made official that one of our finalists, Brandon, aka Olivia, Jordan, Kyle, Lauren, or QT, will be named the winner of the season. There's one last group chat where everyone is so appreciative to the super secret influencer, except Olivia, to which Kyle puts 2 and 2 together that Olivia was the super secret influencer. Now, for the final time, the finalists must complete their final rankings, which will determine who will be named the winner of the Circle Season 6. Straight into the reunion studio as they meet each other face to face for the final time. The best moment of all of this, though, is Kyle's reaction to seeing that Brandon was actually Olivia, and his look is the entire time like his whole life was a lie. Eventually, all of the blocked players return too, including Miles wearing man pearls. Like, why is this a thing? Someone please explain to me why this is happening all of a sudden. I don't understand, and I don't like it. Now, anyways, after a lot of laughs and a lot of questions over what happened through the blocking throughout the season, we get our final alert for the season, meaning it is time to reveal our final rankings. Finishing in 5th place, we have Lauren. And I gotta say, I initially thought Lauren had one of the better chances to win this season once it started, but boy, was she not seemingly prepared at all to play any sort of strategic game whatsoever. Had this been any other season of the Circle, I could easily see Lauren being viewed as one of the most liked players, but this season, players thought a lot more further ahead than who they just wanted to be friends with after the game, so unfortunately, Lauren's downfall comes with her inability to read the room that had the game had changed. And while I do enjoy Lauren and what she brought to the season, I personally wouldn't have probably ranked her any higher than 4th myself, so this feels like an accurate finish for our ex-Twitch streamer. In 4th place, Jordan J. And I gotta be honest, as much as I appreciate what Jordan did for the strategic portion of the game, watching him made me feel a little uncomfortable, to say the least. I don't think there has been someone as openly strategic on the circle before, and Jordan just felt a little too much in the realm of a gamebot, so much that he made Max feel like he was way more personable. Something about Jordan just almost came off a little sociopathic on how hard he was targeting Miles and QT, and it just felt like at some point it just became a personal vendetta against them versus something like Miles and QT actually did in the game to deserve being targeted other than being well liked. And I do think Jordan has the right idea as a latecomer to the game as to what needs to happen to shake up the game for someone in his position, so I could respect the gameplay. But again, Jordan lacked any sort of personality that made me really want to root for his schemes to work out, almost as he came off more like the Circle's version of Russell's Hants than anything else. This might come off as a little harsh, but if Jordan was to never show up on our screens ever again, I would almost say it was too soon because he was just not likable to me in any sense of the word whatsoever. I'm sure he's a great guy outside the show, but what was presented here, I just did not like whatsoever. Now, in 3rd place, we have QT, and truth be told, I'm probably just really bitter right now because I was rooting for your girl the whole time. For me, QT was the real influencer of the game. It feels like her ratings were just purposefully tanked due to jealousy, which I mean, I understand you want to take out a threat, so it's whatever, but I truly think QT is leaving the season as the real breakout star. She played one of the best games from start to finish, and it's unfortunate that QT had to end up with someone so bitter in the finale like Jordan just to take her down, and I'm sure the others likely ranked her a lot higher. It also sucks because I'm sure if QT could have, she would have blocked Jordan before Autumn in the final 7, but they were locked together as ride or die, so she didn't have a choice. I'm not really sure what else I feel like QT could have done to increase her chances in the game, other than maybe rank Miles higher than Olivia in their penultimate rankings, but players like QT really make me hope there is an all Catfish All Stars edition of the Circle someday, because I'd love to see her get another chance to play. But this leaves our final 2, Brandon, aka Olivia, and Kyle. And the winner, $100,000, and the Circle Season 6 champion is Olivia, aka Brandon. And I gotta say, I think just like Miles really benefited from more time with less players, I also agree that someone like Brandon really benefited as well too. He had some of the most fun, like random time, like when he was getting like therapy from his hot dog, or when he was doing like random fashion shows. Like he always had some of the most funniest like downtime play here. And as much as I was rooting for hashtag Twist Frigo, something about Brandon always stuck out to me throughout the whole season to the point where he always felt like he was just going to be a huge threat. Despite, for me, having one of the most obvious catfish personas, because, you know, that Midwest, like, basic white girl thing is kind of been done before. Like, kind of gives me very, like, Emily vibes from season 2, where it's just kind of like a bland white girl. And it's like, okay, well, you're probably a catfish. I feel like those ones tend to tend to always be catfish, but you know that's just me. But Brandon really benefited from the fact that this season was much more focused on strategy than finding catfish. Olivia found herself in some very sticky situations the entire game, from being one of the first influencers to having Miles of all people as her ride or die to receiving the most amount of presents in the gift giving game. But the way Brandon reacted to these situations gave Olivia a much more thoughtful and carrying presence that served him well throughout the season. The game-changing moment of the season absolutely was when Olivia was able to make a lasting bond with Kyle over their fathers, as well as her decision to work closely with Miles when they were ride or dies until she could no longer trust him in the final six. I definitely think Brandon played the most well-rounded game out of everybody in the final five, so as much as I was rooting for QT, I want to make it clear that Brandon's win was absolutely deserved here, and he could be one of the strongest winners this show has ever seen, at least out of the seasons that I've personally seen myself. So, that was the Circle Season 6. Let me know what you thought of the season as well in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe so we can keep spilling that tea, y'all. We have more shows coming for the end of here, just the season of the spring season of 2024. So until next time, y'all, this is Renegade signing out. See you next time. Bye.